Go, Daddy. Go, 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 go. Go. I'd rather let her run around so she can get sleepy.
Yeah.
Daddy.
All right. Wanted to get some information about Columbia. Everything before Columbia, everything after Columbia, during Columbia. Space shuttle. Oh, I'm asleep. We were talking earlier, and you thought the interesting title. You came with an interesting title, "Trauma After the Marches."
Mm-hmm.
What were the marches like?
The marches were, it was exhilarating. It was like something we'd never done before. It was like we had power that we had never had before. And it was, it felt good because it was not not one individual. It was corporate, like corporate power. You could feel the power from the corporate group. Because there were large groups of people marching up and down the streets. So you had the exhilaration initially. Haven't thought about that. Leaving the campus. And we marched from the campus downtown, past C&S Bank, Citizen and Southern Bank, where my mother was a maid. And it was just exhilarating. I must have participated in about 6 or 7 marches. And the teachers, if our grades were good enough, the teachers would let us leave class.
They'll let you leave class?
They would let us leave class if we were doing well in our grades to march.
So the teachers were in support of it?
The teachers were in support of it. They didn't say, the only thing that they would say is that if you can manage your grades and make good grades, then you're welcome to march. And this did not come from the president, but it came from individual teachers.
And what school was this? Was Clark, right?
Clark College.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta, Georgia. It is now Clark Atlanta University.
What year was the first march you were involved in at Clark?
Let me see.
What were there high school marches?
The marches that I participated in were college marches. Now, there were a few high school marches.
While you were in high school, there was a march?
No. Ada was in 10th grade when I graduated from Clark. So she was in 11th grade when I went to college. So there were some high school marches. But these were things that kids did on their own downtown.
Okay.
It was not something that the school set up.
So what group organized the college marches?
I'm almost sure it was a Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Martin Luther King spoke, and we would march. And then there were, like Haskell Ward, there were people like Haskell Ward and other older college students who would pull the marches together. And they had to come from Martin Luther King or the group that Martin Luther King was working with to tell us what days, because we didn't march every day. There were certain days that we marched. And I would not know until I got to school that day whether we were going to march or not.
How would you be notified?
We had to go to chapel every day.
Okay.
Chapel was a prerequisite for everybody. And after chapel, we had classes. And during chapel, that's when they would announce it.
Wow, so church was mandatory on campus?
Yes. Chapel was mandatory.
What time was chapel?
Chapel was about from 8 to 9.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What would happen if you didn't go to chapel?
The teachers there were people that took roll in chapel.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Because when we went to chapel was not just a preaching program.
A church service.
No, it was not just church service. We had different speakers.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm X spoke to us.
Oh, okay.
In chapel.
Okay. At Clark.
At Clark. Mm-hmm. Right. I'm trying to remember.
Wow. How was Malcolm received?
He was well received. He was well received because, in a way, we were trying to grab hold to the word Black Power, and in a way, we had to use Black Power. Black Power meant radicalism,
Mm-hmm.
and Black Power meant Black Power. It was not radical. Black Power was our groups walking down the streets. That was Black Power.
Mm-hmm.
It was not the radicalism that had come out with the, I'm trying to think of the name of that group.
The Panthers?
The Panthers, the Black Panthers.
Okay, so,
So it had a double meaning at that time. And we had to be careful how we used it.
Really, how did the school accept it? The officials, the teachers?
The officials and the teachers accepted it when we were marching. This was Black Power. But it was the corporate Black Power moving forward. It was not causing problems.
Okay.
But what we realized afterwards was that the police set up a lot of the problems that happened with the Black Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
The police provoked those kind of things, and we didn't know because we were on another. That they were up in Chicago,
right,
and we were in the South, so that made a big difference.
All right, so you're going to the marches in Clark.
Mm-hmm.
How did involvement in the marches affect things? Affect race relations? Affect inter and intra-race relations?
Well, the way that I can tell you about how it affected race relations is according to the people, the white people that I had to associate with. All right. My mother did not let the people at the bank know initially when the marches first started that I was marching. Because if they had known that, she would have lost her job.
Now, she ended up losing her job.
She ended up losing her job after about the 5th or 6th march. And that's when she said, "Go on, baby." She raised I told her that we would be marching by Citizen and Southern Bank that she worked for, which is now Bank of America. And she told I told her I would wave a red scarf, and she said that she would wave her red scarf. We both had handkerchiefs, and when I passed by, she was upstairs, maybe on the 3rd floor, looking out the window, and I waved my red scarf, and she waved her red scarf and hollered out the door, out of the window, "Go on, baby!" And somebody on the street, who were on the sidewalk, because we took up the street, somebody on the sidewalk recognized her from the bank, who worked at the bank, and told her boss. That's when she was released from her job for 3 months. She was fired. I was doing, after work, after school on Saturdays, I would do private home. I went into private homes. That meant working in the homes of white people, cleaning their homes, everything, washing their clothes, ironing their clothes, whatever. And there were two families that I worked for. One family found out that I was marching. She just asked me, "Ruth, are you participating in those sit-in demonstrations downtown?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "And you can go home right now." I had worked for about half a day when she asked me that.
How long had you worked for her by that point?
Oh, for about a year. I had worked with her for about a year. And then there was another lady. I worked for her house, she and her husband. And she worked with the bank. So the lady at the bank, that I told her that that I was marching, she told the other lady. So both of them let me go, which meant that there was no income for me. Because at this time in my life, I was buying my own shoes and I was buying my own clothes on $5 a day and car fare. So I worked starting at around age 15, going to work with my mother on Saturdays and helping her with parties on Friday nights. That's how I earned money.
What type of parties?
These were parties in the home, birthday parties, corporate parties, and my mother did the serving of the food. I was in the kitchen and I would stack the plates with the food on them.
So you did catering?
Yeah.
All right, so you're at Clark. You're involved in the marches. You were in Clark for how many years?
4 years.
Okay, so it was a 4-year program, and you were studying
Social studies with a minor in education, secondary education.
How long did the marches occur while you were in college? Were there marches all 4 years?
I think the marches were my sophomore and junior years. Sophomore and junior years. We didn't have as many during my senior year, because during the senior years I did my observation and I was away from the college campus. I was at schools, did my observations, and I had to do an internship. So I didn't have the time to do it then. We were concentrating on trying to get out of college. But most of the times that, I think most of the marches took place between my sophomore and my junior year.
What years were those?
My second year in college and the third year in college.
I mean, what, 1960?
I graduated from high school in 1960.
Okay.
So it had to be, graduated and I went to college, so it was 60 to 64. 60 to 64. I graduated in 1964.
In 1960, when you graduated from high school, what was the climate like?
We had a lot of racial tension, especially on the street that I lived on, because it was one of the major thoroughfares through the black and white community.
Okay.
McDaniel Street was a major thoroughfare. It went from University. University is where you get off at the expressway. And if you went straight up University and made a left-hand turn, you would be in a white neighborhood. But if you made any right-hand turns off of University, you would be in a black neighborhood.
And it was really that defined. Well, one was definitely a white neighborhood, and one was definitely.
Yes, that defined. Mm-hmm. Right. And so from McDaniel Street, McDaniel was the thoroughfare that led from, I think they call it Martin Luther King Boulevard now, but one of the major downtown streets to a University. And McDaniel, once it crossed the railroad tracks, became, I can't even think of the name of that street now, but that was the street that the colleges were on. Spelman, Morehouse, back in that way.
Now, in the black communities at that time, were there people of different, what's the term I'm looking for? Incomes?
Oh, yes.
Was there like a rich black neighborhood and a poor black?
No, there weren't. There were, the school teachers lived in our neighborhood. In our neighborhoods. Ms. Wright lived right down the street. She was two houses down the street from us. She was a school teacher. The ministers lived in our neighborhoods. They had not started.
So there wasn't a black middle class separation.
There was a black middle class separation. But in our neighborhood, there was no middle class separation. We had poor, middle class, poor and upper and middle class people. Once you crossed the railroad tracks and went into the college community, that's when you went into the upper middle class black community near Auburn Avenue in southwest Atlanta.
Stop right there.